This is part 2 of Beauty in Black, so watch our first part if you haven't. But if you're too busy for that, what had happened was, there's a stripper named Kimmie who follows orders from Jules, a man who is head of security in this big trafficking ring. Kimmie sleeps with a VIP client named Roy, and she made sure his wife knew about it. Mallory Bellarie heard the two fucking. However, she ran over someone on the road and tried to cover it up, but the victim disappeared. And there's also Kimmie's best friend Rain, who got a back alley BBL and is now in the hospital. Kimmie befriends one of her closeted gay clients named Horace, who turns out to be Roy's dad and Mallory's father-in-law. Let's continue. After finding photos of Horace, Jules, Mallory, and Roy, Kimmie can't help but feel worried about the shit she got into. Horace assures her that he will contact Rain in the hospital. Then he tells her to get the stack of money in his pocket. He reveals that he and his brother Norman built the company Bellarie Beauty in Black. Norman was a chemist, and Horace handled the business side of the company. He advises Kimmie not to use their products because the lye relaxer causes cancer. Then he adds that it's probably karma that he has dick cancer. Horace says that Angel stole his watch, and he wants Kimmie to take it back. Norman Bellarie rushes to the hospital and finds his wife, Ena, in a critical condition. He is furious, reminding the doctor that his family donated that hospital wing and that they have to save Ena no matter what. Meanwhile, Kimmie confronts Angel and tells him to return Horace's watch. She thinks that Horace is Jules' boss and that they are doomed if Jules finds out what they did. Angel's baby mama nope, this watch mine at first, but finally gives the watch. Jules arrives at the hospital to support his boss. Norman says his wife is in a medically induced coma and the doctors think she was hit by a car. We already know Mallory done did that shit. He is determined to find out who hurt Ena, and he asks Jules to get to work right away. The next morning, Roy gets slapped by his wife Mallory after he tells her to shut up. Then Mallory receives an urgent call from Jules talking about her running someone over. She pretends she doesn't know what he's talking about, even though Jules assures her that it's a secure line. He reveals that Ena was the one she ran over on the private road. They don't know why she's running in the middle of the night during a heavy rain, but they know Norman won't stop until he has someone to blame. Mallory brushes off the problem, saying Ena is already an old-ass bitch, so she won't make it, and that if Jules handles the problem, he'll get more money since he's already part of Horace's last will. Body and Daga return to Kimmie's apartment to confront her. Kimmie promises that she's not going to say anything, so there's nothing to worry about. But Body warns her that they are going to give her a reason not to talk. Then they start to beat her ass. Oh hell nah, they do our girl dirty. Horace's ex-wife, Olivia, finds Norman in the church, crying. Norman tells her what happened to Ena, then asks if any of her sons were responsible for it. He adds that Ena was found in a tow yard in Indiana, and they don't know how she got there. Then he warns Olivia that if Horace is covering up the truth, he will destroy their entire family. Olivia tries to reach her ex-husband, but the bellboy says Horace left. Because she's badly hurt, Kimmie heads to the hospital for a checkup. While waiting for her turn, she grabs the chance to see Rain. Olivia catches her son Charles breaking a man's back. Oh, so the gay gene done run in the family? She threatens the man to leave, and he runs out naked before she reveals why she came. Hopefully, both of the men came. She asks him if he drove on the private road the night before, and he assures her he didn't. So she checks all 3 of his cars, including the polygonal Tesla trash for any traces of blood, but doesn't find any. Olivia tells his son he needs to go to the board meeting, telling him to haul ass since he loves ass so much. The nurses laugh at Kimmie when she asks about Rain, and she quickly realizes that Rain has become the butt of their jokes. Report they asses to HR. Rain is in so much pain she can barely talk, but she manages to tell Kimmie that she has huge blood clots, which the nurses say will go to her lungs. She adds that the hospital doesn't even have doctors, and she asks Kimmie not to leave her alone. The fuck kind of hospital is that? For the sake of appearances, Mallory welcomes her mother-in-law, Olivia, when she arrives for the board meeting. However, Mallory was talking mad shit just before that. Roy and Charles don't really want anything to do with the company, but they know they have to show up so Horace won't cut them out of the will. Olivia tells Mallory what happened to Ena, asking if Roy or Charles drove on the private road the night before. Mallory pretends not to know, saying she'll ask Roy if he did. Olivia reminds her that she left the company because she doesn't want to deal with all the drama, adding that Norman is very violent and that he will bring the company down if the culprit is one of the boys. Afterward, Mallory tells Roy what his mother Olivia said. Then she threatens him that she will find out who he's been sleeping with. Roy plays dumb, saying there's no way his phone called Mallory's, so Mallory shows him the voice command on his phone, and to his surprise, it works. Charles is dumbfounded that Roy doesn't know how voice command works. He explains it to him, then says he has to turn off the AI commands even though the phone already has a password. Roy is mad, thinking that Kimmie done set him up. At the hospital, Kimmie tells Rain that Horace, the owner of Beauty and Black Company, is also the one who runs the club. In the club, we all fam. Rain is too groggy to understand, but she tells Kimmie that Jules will be mad if he finds out she's visited her again. Then she advises Kimmie to return the next day. As she steps out of the hospital, Jules shows up and asks Kimmie to get in the car. He's furious because he has warned Kimmie multiple times not to go there. Kimmie says she was there for a checkup after Body and Daga beat her up, but Jules doesn't know anything about that. She apologizes, but Jules is determined to teach her a lesson. He orders her to get out of the car and stand still. He wants to run her over, but as he moves forward, the safety features of the car prevent him from hitting her. For one last time, he threatens to kill her if she comes back to the hospital. Meanwhile, Norman finds one of Ena's shoes when he heads down the private road. Roy wants to see Kimmie again to make her pay for setting him up. Jules warns him not to get his hands dirty, but Roy insists he has to deal with her. At the board meeting, Horace grabs Charles' phone and finds that he's texting a man asking to get his back broken and squirt inside him. Horace blames Olivia for making their son gay, but we all know the closet is made of glass. Horace. Then the company attorney, Varney, explains that there are more plaintiffs now and more women are joining the class action lawsuit against Beauty and Black. Olivia just wants to settle, but Horace reminds her that if the lawsuit catches traction, they're going to lose the company. Varney says the insurance company will cover $100 million, but it's not enough because the settlement costs $1.5 billion. It will surely bankrupt the company. Then Norman barges in, carrying Ena's shoe, asking who among them ran over his wife. Norman thinks one of his nephews ran over his wife, but they both say they didn't do it. Norman overhears calling Charles fruitcake. Horace wonders what kind of chemist Norman is to not know what chemicals causes cancer. Horace tells him to leave, but Norman refuses, saying he was the one who built the company and not Horace. Horace then says Charles lets men climb on his back and take it from behind. Horace, you the one who wanted that little Latino boy, even though he voted for Trump the other day. Norman warns them that if Ina dies, he will destroy the entire company. Afterward, Olivia tells Horace not to make Norman angry because knows all the little skeletons in their closet. Emphasis on the closet. But Horace is not afraid of his own brother. Before he leaves, Norman orders Jules to find out which of his nephews hit his wife on the private road. So Jules assures him he's already working on it. Charles wonders if Jules thinks he did it, and Charles says he don't shit where he eats. Charles likes getting his shit pushed in though. Jules then reminds Roy of his place in the hierarchy by yelling at him. Olivia advises Charles not to taunt his uncle because he is a very dangerous man, but like Horace, Charles doesn't take the warning seriously. Olivia asks him to stay away from home until Norman cools down, so Charles decides he'll be staying in a hotel for a few days. Meanwhile, Mallory talks to attorney Varney, asking what she should do to save her shares just in case the company files for bankruptcy. Varney says it's a tricky move because people can still go after them. Then Mallory asks him out for a drink, which he initially refuses. But then she finally gets him to say yes. Oh, homegirl, a bed swerver. Kimmie receives a phone call from her mother asking her for more money. She wants to go home, but she learns that her mother's boyfriend, Frank, is still living at their house, and she doesn't want to go back if he's still there. So her mother tells her to stay where she's at since she's earning good money anyway. Kimmie says I love you, but her stank-ass mom doesn't return the gesture. Later, Angel visits her to talk about Horace. He looked him up online and learned that he has a lot of money and that the watch he stole from him cost $1.2 million. Angel wants to rob him, then run away from the place, but Kimmie tells him that Jules will kill them if he finds out because they already know too much. Olivia visits Ena at the hospital, but Norman tells her that after Norman and Olivia had their entanglement, Ena wouldn't want Olivia to be there. However, he knows that Olivia is there to make sure he's not going to do anything to her sons, yet he refuses to compromise. Feeling cornered, Olivia produces some documents saying she knows about Norman's human trafficking business, which includes Jules overseeing the operation. They making millions of dollars. She says she can lock him up for life, but Norman says the threats won't stop him. So Olivia warns him that she too won't back down. Meanwhile, Mallory's assistant Jillian and security guard Calvin are arguing because he found out that she almost slept with Roy earlier in the office. Jillian says she doesn't have a choice, but Calvin still feels disappointed. Meanwhile, Attorney Varney is careful with his words no matter what Mallory asks him. So she asks if he wants to sleep with her, to which he says no. Homegirl having trouble finding someone to match her freak. Disappointed, Mallory walks out of the restaurant, taking only Calvin and leaving Jillian behind. On their way home, Mallory orders Calvin to sit beside her. They talk. Then Calvin realizes that Mallory wants him, even though she doesn't say it. It's been a long time since someone wanted her, so she lets Calvin have her in the back seat. They don't notice that Jillian catches them doing it. Big back Delinda and Body laugh as they look at the amount of Kimmie's debt, $237,000. They are convinced that Jules is only making it up because it's way bigger than Rain's. They notice that Kimmie is not making any money on stage, so they send her to the VIP room where Horace is waiting for her. She returns his watch to him. However, she is grumpy, thinking that Horace is the real club owner and that he's only playing her. Horace doesn't understand why Kimmie is acting cold, so he wants to leave. On his way out, he catches Charles talking to Angel, and he tells Kimmie that Charles shouldn't know he's there. Kimmie tells Angel to stop talking to Charles, and Angel admits he wants to see Horace again at Kimmie's apartment. Horace agrees, saying he also wants to see Angel one more time. When they get to her place, Kimmie doesn't want to leave Horace alone with Angel, so she decides to wait until they're done. However, Horace assures her that he'll be fine, and then he tells her to just come back after an hour. Horace warns Angel that he could call the police on him for stealing his watch, but the dancer shrugs off the warning because he knows Horace closeted. He strips all of his clothes, calling him daddy, then starts dancing in front of Horace. He has just started his dance when Horace coughs AIDS on him. Worried that it's contagious, Angel washes off the blood, while Horace tells him that it's not something he should be worried about. After that, he returns to finish his performance. I ain't gay, but that man's ass is bubbly. When Calvin and Mallory arrive home, Jillian wonders if Mallory needs help, saying she looks disheveled. However, Mallory claps back, saying Jillian needs to work harder. Jillian is quick to confront her boyfriend. Calvin warns her that people can't find out they are together. After confirming that he did it with Mallory, Jillian says she will tell Roy about it. Calvin acts tough, saying he doesn't care, but Jillian tells him he should be because Roy will not let it pass. When Kimmie returns to the hospital to check on Rain, she finds her bed empty, and the other patient tells her that her friend already died. That's the end of the 4th episode. This family drama keeps growing. I suspect Rain didn't die, but maybe that's just me hoping, because she's one good thing in Kimmie's life. What did y'all think of this episode? We will be covering the rest, so make sure you're subscribed.
Subscribe to watch more videos like this. Turn on notifications. And leave a like, it really helps the channel out. Thank you for watching.